No one ever said being a mum was going to be easy. And when it comes to your family's nutrition and healthy living, I understand can be particularly challenging and often emotional, especially when you're bombarded with so many different opinions. As mums, we always aim to provide the very best for our family, which often means putting ourselves at the bottom of the pecking order, particularly when it comes to our own well-being. But just consider this for me. Kids form their habits and beliefs from watching us day to day. Our actions and choices quite literally influence them and shape the way they live their lives. Not only that, if we don't take the right steps to maintain our own health, who will take care of the family if we fall prey to illness? Which isn't something the majority of people even consider until it actually happens to them. Allow me to share a story with you. This is a very, very true story, by the way. I remember sharing a train with a young lady and her mum, who were on the way to Children in Need's annual event a couple of years ago. This little girl was receiving an award for being her mum's carer at the age of only 12. And honestly, I cannot tell you the guilt this little girl's mum expressed to me. She told me she felt as though she had deprived her little girl of her childhood, and that was a guilt that haunted her every single day of her life. And she said if she could turn back the clock and do things differently, because she identified where the deterioration in her health came from, and she said if she could turn the clock back and do things differently, she would do it. It's a story that I will never ever forget, because it really touched me. I got quite emotional when I was talking to this lady, because I felt her pain. I suppose it sits more with me now because I'm a mum myself, and the thought of, because I have been compromised with my own health, suffering from advanced Crohn's disease. I know that when I was in active disease, there's no way I could have been able to care for my daughter the way she needs to be cared for. So I'm going to do everything within my power to make sure that I never get into that position ever again. You see, it can happen to any one of us without warning sometimes. So wouldn't it make perfect sense to take the necessary steps to understanding how our own bodies work, what affects it negatively, and how we can better protect our own health long term, so we can then apply these principles to safeguard our family's long term health too? In fact, this knowledge is key to shaping their future. But with all the conflicting information out there, online and in the media, I totally understand it can get a little confusing to know what's right and what's wrong. So how can I help you? Well, my name's Kate Eaton and I'm a nutrition and lifestyle coach with over 16 years experience specialising in immune and inflammatory health conditions. I also work very closely with a doctor of nutritional science who has written a number of peer-reviewed papers on inflammation and inflammatory conditions. The principles I teach and follow has allowed me to fully recover from the advanced stages of Crohn's disease without the assistance of medication, and additionally made it possible for my mum to dramatically extend her life expectancy whilst battling two very unpredictable forms of cancer and defying the odds for over 14 years. So I can personally say that the knowledge I have to share is incredibly valuable. This is where I would like to offer you some guidance and share with you some tips to improving your energy levels so you start feeling amazing, while still future-proofing yours and the family's long-term health at the same time. Tip number 1, get a good night's rest. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's easier said than done, Kate. I understand. I've got a 1.5-year-old myself, but it's actually easier than we make it appear. You see, quality sleep is a vital part of the body's healing process because it's mainly during REM sleep the body releases our IGF-1 hormone, which is responsible for the growth and repair of every organ in our whole body. This is otherwise known as our cell regeneration process. See, just because we are mums and we have a little person to think about doesn't mean we can suddenly live without this important function. Because without it, we most certainly will accelerate the onset of ill health. So let's look at this practically. Once the kids are in bed, there's nothing to be gained by sitting and watching pointless television programs, scrolling through social media for hours on end, or surfing the web. So why not use this time and give yourself a well-deserved early night? Put on some sleep hypnosis and just see how more refreshed you feel the next day. And I promise you, no television program is worth sacrificing that feeling for. Tip number 2. So now that you're getting a good night's sleep, it's time to eliminate one of the biggest excuses people use for not making an important change. Excuse number 1 is I don't have time. Now, I don't have time is the adult's version of the dog ate my homework. It is an excuse to get out of doing what we know that we need to do. The reality is we have to make time and be in control of our own life and our own future. But in this case, it's not just being in control of our own life and our own future, it's to being in control of our family's future as well. So by going to bed earlier and using your preferred technique to drift into restful sleep means you are now able to get up earlier compared to the rest of the family. And you can use this time productively for something that will serve you and the family. So allow me to give you an example of my typical morning. I generally tend to put my alarm on anything between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. Because we tend to leave the house for me to drop my husband off at around about 6:30. So I get up anything between 3 and 4, depending on whether I want to fit in any work beforehand as well. I wash the pots, get all those cleared out the way, and then I make breakfast for me and Sophia, and I make my morning smoothie drinks for myself, my husband, and Sophia. Whilst doing all these morning essentials, now I classify these as my morning essentials. I won't do anything until I have done these things first, because this allows me to get my brain in gear. But whilst I'm doing this, I'm listening to a motivational audiobook, which then puts me in the right mindset for the day moving forward. Now, this usually takes me around about 40 minutes. So if I was prepping lunch as well, in advance of the day, I'd say I'd need to allocate an hour to do all those things. Now, my little girl usually wakes up anything between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. There are the odd exceptions on odd days, obviously. Some days she will get up earlier, so it kind of throws a little bit of a spanner in the works. But generally speaking, this tends to work pretty well. But if let's say she's still asleep at 5 a.m. That's when I'll make a to-do list for the day or the week, and I'll maybe fit in a little bit of work as well before she gets up. It's a well-known fact, most highly successful entrepreneurs get up earlier and go to bed earlier. People like Richard Branson, Alan Sugar, all these people are highly successful entrepreneurs, and they will all get up early and they will all go to bed early as well, so that they can function properly throughout the day and work their business effectively. So if you've ever heard of the 5 a.m. club, that's where the 5 a.m. club comes from. So it's about getting up at 5 a.m. And going to bed earlier. I've actually created my own club, clearly, because I get up earlier than 5 a.m. But you will, if you've ever come across it with people talking about it on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, or in the office, they'll generally refer to 5 a.m. That's generally the time that they would get up. But the reality is, the more things you want to fit in the day, that fit in the morning before you start your day off, the earlier you've got to get up. So if then you wanted to go out for a run before you have you do everything else, well, you've got to allocate that time and get up a little bit earlier to accommodate it. So it is absolutely achievable, but only provided you're getting the sleep in as well. So that's why it's really, really important to start off with going to bed earlier. Tip number 3. Avoid using stimulants to unwind. So, when I refer to stimulants, I mean alcohol, caffeine, nicotine. So, not only are all these things extremely damaging to our health, which we're all aware of, but they will trigger the release of cortisol, which is our natural stress hormone. And a consistently raised cortisol level will hinder tip number 1, getting an early night, and make it harder for you to switch off, regardless of you being tired. The same would apply to TV, internet, and games. These are all going to keep the brain stimulated and make it harder for you to switch off. Again, exercise. As I just touched on exercise in your morning routine program. Avoid doing excessive exercise at night time. This is going to cause you to release adrenaline, and that in itself as well is going to keep the brain stimulated. So my suggestion for exercise is allocate that required time in the morning and get up early to fit it in. So for example, if you want to do a 30-minute run in the morning and prep your breakfast and lunch for the day, I would aim to get up 2 hours earlier after you've had a good night's sleep. Exercising in the morning is a great way to set you up for the day, because it's going to give you lots of energy and it's going to put you in a really positive frame of mind. Tip number 4, make a list of your monthly priorities in order of importance. So, and what this will do is this will hopefully change and eliminate the second most popular excuse, which is I can't afford it. So what I've done here is, now this, you can have this template to download yourself and do your own tracking and your own chart, but I'm just going to walk you through this. So you can see here you've got monthly essentials, you've got your monthly budget, so that's what money you have to use to spend that in a month, and you've got a column for your luxuries. So you can see here we've got rent, mortgage, gas, electric, all the usual things that will come into the monthly essentials: food, shopping, travel expenses, so petrol and things like that. I've also put in car maintenance there, credit card payment, minimum payments. But the one thing that most people wouldn't put into this column is their health. They would maybe try and build it into their monthly food bill. And that needs to be completely different cost allocation within your monthly essentials column. I would estimate you need to be allocating anything between £50 and £150 a month, depending on your personal circumstances and depending on the goal that you want to achieve. So these are all your monthly essentials. So all your luxuries are in a complete different column entirely. So if we take our budget column, we've got, obviously everybody's budget is completely different. So we're working on the assumption that, you've got a joint income between you and your partner of £3,000. I've put down here £1,000 for rent or mortgage. It could be more, it could be less. You've got gas, I've put down 100, electric 100, phone bills 50, food 400. So that's based on if you've got a family. Travel or petrol, £400. If you've got 2 cars, that is. Insurances, £50. So I've put down that again. Car maintenance, £50. So you're left with that's a total of 2,200. So you're actually left with £800 on luxury items. Now, you should never be spending on any of these things before you've paid out for everything that's in your monthly essentials column. So, for example, you would never go on a holiday before you would pay your rent or your mortgage, would you? You would never do that. You would never pay for the kids' activities if you had to pay your electric bill or your gas bill. You would never buy a bottle of wine if you had to put food on the table. You would never do any of those things. So why do so many people put all these things here that are in the luxuries column over and above allocating a budget for their health? And lots of people do it. You see, good health really is a big jigsaw puzzle, which is why my final tip is educate yourself on what other adjustments you could make to diet and lifestyle that may be compromising yours and your family's current and long-term health. The knowledge I'm about to share with you has literally changed my life, and I know it can have a positive impact on your life too. So just click the Learn More link in the video or in the post to find out what adjustments you could make to diet and lifestyle that will safeguard everything you hold dear to your heart.